The Russian elite is preparing for a post-Putin Kremlin, while also looking for ways to escape from Russia during the current war.
We must tackle the oligarchs here and go after their money.
There are silent protests in the streets because open action is too risky. Inflation is ticking away in homes, and grocery bills are getting a little higher every week. Among the elite, escape plans and post-Putin work desks are multiplying, and closed meetings are getting longer and longer. Now, private jets are no longer flying from Moscow to the west, but more frequently to safe havens outside the west. There are fluctuations in the value of summer homes outside the city, as some are converting to cash and others are fortifying their shelters. A new clinic in the Alps, a quiet facility on the Black Sea dubbed a guest house, a service office in Dubai. Let's not romanticize any of this. These are just signs, reflexes, preparations, but they all converge in a single sentence. The system has not taken the possibility of an after off the table. And as that possibility grows, things that were once whispered are now spoken aloud in broad daylight. There are now two plans under the same roof. How do I survive today? And how do I stay afloat tomorrow? Some oligarchs are keeping their faces hidden, while others are looking too closely at the camera. Both are saying the same thing: uncertainty is growing. In the corridors of the Kremlin, there is another kind of panic. The chain of command is shouting louder, notes are being written more concisely, and fewer hands are willing to take risks. When the weary news from the front lines meets the cold numbers from the market at the same table, everyone quietly murmurs the same question: what will happen next? Some brush it off with, "We'll get through the day." Others brace themselves with, "One day." Now, Putin is in panic mode. Because the preview of the Soviet collapse is unfolding. From the outside, the walls appear solid, but inside, small thresholds are piling up behind the doors. This is not a storm that will erupt overnight, but a long-term shift in the weather. Some are looking for an umbrella, some are building a roof, and others are drawing new escape routes on the map. So what will this wave of whispers turn into? An escape, a rehearsal, or a strange mixture of both? The language of power has become sharper, shorter, and more directive in the last 2 years. The war economy, the security reflex, and the feeling of, if not now, then when, have made the state more vertical. Verticalization brings speed, but if it persists, it erodes horizontal trust. Institutions hide bad news as much as good news, and files pile up in wait-and-see folders. Those who write orders shout louder, those who read them take fewer risks, and in the middle ranks, the art of not making mistakes becomes the new name for career advancement. And when everyone shifts into this mode at the same time, the small minority at the top grows heavier, while the majority below slows down. In such times, even if the chairs remain in place, the way people sit changes. Some lean their elbows on the armrests, others plant their feet firmly on the ground. Some keep one eye on the door and the other on their phone. These are the days when whoever calls, goes. The capital is where power is seen. The real story begins where power is shared. The Siloviki, or security corps, want more control, clearer rules, stricter boundaries, and faster compliance. Technocrats, on the other hand, are tasked with keeping the system running. Budget, money, imports, production, labor. When the two meet at the table, the file can flow smoothly or become as solid as a mountain. The state-linked business world is the third leg of this table. Tenders, mines, energy, railways, defense, and telecommunications are the veins that feed it. In this layer, courage and caution coexist. While smiling for the camera, a new contract draft is being written with the legal advisor. Families listen more closely to other languages. Children's school plans are redrawn, and option passports are taken off the shelf. No one says it will end tomorrow, but no one says it will last forever. This is the name of the grey area. If the phone rings in the middle of the night, who goes to whom? The answer to this question is whispered in every room these days. The cost of war is heavy not only on the battlefield, but also in the accounting books. Import substitution lines have been opened, but quality is fluctuating, and costs are up and down. Financing has been shifted to the state, banks have swollen with public debt, and private credit has become more selective. Now, elite behavior and budget lines meet on the same graph, because money flows where power flows. In the 2025 budget, the defense budget's share of GDP has reached the highest level since the post-Soviet era. The share of defense and security in total spending has become more pronounced. The state's coffers are weighed down by the dark gravity of war. More weapons, more ammunition, more contracts. This is not a matter of increasing the numbers or filling in the gaps. This is about which class and which circle will remain in the decision-making room tomorrow. A war economy first changes factories, then languages. 2 more shifts in a month, 2 more suppliers in a year, 2 more zeros after a period. However, as this multiplier grows, the resource pool does not expand. Energy revenues are volatile due to high discounts and freight insurance costs. Margin pressure is putting strain on the budget. A window to Asia has opened, but discounts have grown and logistics costs have eaten into profits. Access to technology now flows through capillaries. Every new device is a test, every software update an adventure. Growth potential has been constrained, productivity momentum has slowed, and the defense-first budget stance has deepened. Social spending has also increased. It is not a choice but a necessity. Investments in infrastructure and human capital are being spread out over time and written off as, "We'll look into it later." In the short term, the wheels are turning, but in the medium term, the chrome is peeling off. It can be polished, but finding new parts is difficult. Many ask where the break will come from. Sometimes the break doesn't come, but flexibility does. And when flexibility lasts too long, the system wears out prematurely. Regions in this story are not just maps, but budgets. The North Caucasus is young and dynamic. The line between security and local politics is thin. In the Volga-Ural region, identity and economy go hand in hand. A bigger share is not just a slogan, but real money going into the coffers. The Far East and Siberia are vast, remote, and resource-rich. Proximity to China creates economic pull. Kaliningrad, meanwhile, is geography's joke. NATO pressure and logistics keep it breathing through a thin vein. Metropolises are distinct: culture, technology, an educated middle class, a service economy, migration, and the dream of migration coexist under the same roof. These cities are strong in their ability to adapt, cautious in their forms of dissent. They invest in assets, jobs, visas, and passports, not in the streets. When the rhythm difference between the center and the periphery grows, it's not a rupture but a loss of coordination. The same music plays, but everyone walks at a different tempo. When coordination is lost, who will say, "Stop"? That's the real knot. The security apparatus's network within the city is now more visible. Rosgvardia has positioned itself as the insurance of mass order. Its presence has become part of everyday life. The FSB sets the rhythm beyond control. The pulse of information flow beats there. As grey areas grow in the fields of mobilization and counter-mobilization, the language of command and control simplifies, but it wears people down. What is wearing out is not just the shine of the paint on the helmets. It is the internal communication of institutions, the trust between the field and the desk, and the energy of the middle management who say, "I'll take care of it." General changes, promotions, and dismissals make the news. What matters is not the news itself, but its frequency. As frequency increases, the sense of stability diminishes. Files seem to be person-centered rather than system-centered. Whoever speaks in the command room determines which doors open below. If the answer is unclear, everyone slows down. Whose orders are followed? If this question can be answered on a routine day, not just in a crisis, the system can breathe. In times when the economy and security are so intertwined, money speaks more honestly. Capital does not read political texts. It looks at risk premiums and legal certainty. Some assets are moved to friendly jurisdictions, some are divided into trusts, and some partnership shares are transferred to invisible partners. Family files swell, new country options for children, new job plans for spouses, and health records for parents are compiled. The language of business people changes. Where they once spoke of investment, now they speak of flexibility. Where they once spoke of growth, now they speak of resilience. The central bank and the treasury seek to reverse this behavior by providing liquidity, rules, and incentives. These measures work to some extent, buying time. However, investor psychology listens more to rhythm than numbers. If the rhythm is not steady, money stays as a guest. One night, it seems like nothing has happened, but when you wake up in the morning, there is a new cashier at your neighbor's shop. This is the silent statement of capital. All of this picture is incomplete without the external environment. The European and Atlantic axis has locked onto the Ukraine issue, codifying the energy-finance-technology divide. It hasn't completely closed the door on a return, but it has subjected it to harsh conditions. Verification, timelines, monitoring, and penalties for violations. The Asian axis has become the anchor. China has written the rules of the game with its large market, credit, standards, and technology. India, Turkey, and the Gulf are both markets and transit points. However, every opportunity is also a bargaining chip. Africa and the Middle East are opening new paths, but logistics are long and the risk premium is high. This asymmetric network limits Moscow's bargaining power. Sales exist, but there is no margin. Access exists, but standards are outside. Partnership exists, but who holds the pen remains a never-ending debate. A channel that worked last night may close this morning. Therefore, planning requires patience and execution requires reflexes. Where is bargaining power eroding? Whoever sets the standards holds the reins. Let's address the dangerous question on everyone's mind. Will there be a second Soviet collapse? Major collapses are rarely as loud as they are in legends. In reality, systems break down while still functioning. A sharp decline requires 5 or 6 thresholds to be crossed simultaneously. Loss of control in leadership, paramilitarization in the regions, a break in the financial chain, a sudden cut in energy revenues, a ready and willing design in the outside world, and a weary acceptance of this within the country. This combination is rare. It is uncommon but not impossible. More likely is a prolonged stagnation. The power shell is rigid, growth is low, the budget is squeezed between military and social spending, brain drain and capital flight are silent but persistent, and the rule of law is on paper but not in practice. The system is not collapsing, but it cannot be renewed. This is precisely what is meant by weary stability. As for those who ask whether a pivot similar to the Yeltsin era will come, history does not repeat itself with the same actors on the same stage. The social memory of those days is costly and painful. Today, core conditions are needed for such a pivot. A sharper decline in economic indicators, a wave of war fatigue that crosses the threshold, the visible evasion of responsibility among the elite, the security apparatus becoming clear on non-intervention, and political consensus on a gradual conditional finance technology package in the outside world. Theoretically possible, practically unlikely. But unlikely does not mean impossible. It remains a thin branch on the tree of probability, which could thicken if the wind picks up. Which branch is thicker? Today's signals favor a hard shell, long stagnation. The situation within the army cannot be summed up in the cold sentences of political science. In a protracted war, loyalty and fatigue walk hand in hand. The burden is not equal between those who give and those who receive. Some units are heavily engaged, some are in reserve, and some are on special missions. Veteran networks can be more effective than municipalities and councils. This is not unknown, but it is ignored. When salaries and compensation are delayed, whispers grow louder. When logistics falter, complaints harden. Tactical criticisms turn into strategic debates. Can all this be easily suppressed? Yes, it can, but what is suppressed does not disappear. It accumulates, changes shape, and seeps out elsewhere. What the military wants most is clear objectives, reasonable timelines, and adequate resources. When all three are lacking, orders become shorter but harder to follow. The question of whose orders are followed resurfaces, and if the answer is unclear, even those willing to take risks hit the brakes. On the societal front, the mathematics of daily life is more persuasive than anything else. Wage increases lag behind prices in most sectors. Food and rent pressures strain household budgets. Second jobs, freelance work, and informal solutions are on the rise. City cards, discounts, promotions, and installments are part of everyday language. Healthcare and education are kept at a passable level. There are good examples, but the average is expensive. Digital surveillance is growing. Citizen compliance is increasing. Forms of dissent are shifting to the private sphere. Parents are more pragmatic. a good school for their children, a safe passport, a home with fast internet. Logistics are discussed more than politics. This middle class is the country's barometer. If their hope curve breaks, the economy will drop from manageable to insufficient. Where will society's patience crack? When small moments of justice inside and small windows of opportunity outside close at the same time. External actors are not emotional when looking at this picture. They are calculating. Europe's priorities are security and stability, the predictability of energy flows, the calm management of borders, and the reduction of migration and cyber risks. America's priority is not to disrupt the rhythm of NATO, to maintain the same tempo in both the Pacific and European arenas. China's priority is the market and corridors, to draft its own plans, to expand trade without loosening the reins on credit and technology conditions. Turkey, India, and Gulf players want to open up space, trade, logistics, energy, defense. None of them want a hard collapse, not just because of the nuclear file, but because of the waves in the market. That is why a controlled transition seems to be the only common interest, painful but manageable. What outcome does the world want? The clear answer is, not shock, but calibrated change. When you lay out the probability tree on the table and trace each branch, 4 main paths emerge. The first is a continuation of the status quo. A hard shell, low growth, prolonged stagnation, and controlled pressure. The second is a minor political adjustment. Technocrats gain more influence, rhetoric softens, and the economic agenda shifts back to a productivity and process vocabulary. The third is a shock. Internal governance cracks, an unexpected health security incident, or an economic downturn triggers a small change of hands, giving rise to a transition council. The fourth is a major rupture. Thresholds are crossed simultaneously, regional paramilitarization and financial chains break, with heavy packages abroad and heavy costs at home. The most likely of these 4 is a mix of the first 2. The third path is low probability but high impact, lurking on the sidelines. The fourth is the one that keeps strategists awake at night, but it is the least desired outcome, and therefore the most sought after to prevent. This is why the question of who will answer the phone is so important. Will it be a technocrat, a pragmatist from the security establishment, or a collective council? If any of the answers inspire confidence, money will flow in, credit spreads will narrow, and morale in the city will recover quickly. Otherwise, everyone will go into "we'll decide today" mode. The nuclear command and control chain is at the top of the list in each of these scenarios. The professionalism of institutions is an undisputed priority here. International pressure is also the harshest in this area. Major powers do not want a hard collapse, therefore, transition protection umbrella becomes the key phrase. Energy and pipelines, ports and maritime traffic, railways and customs are all part of the same equation. The risk of accidents cannot be eliminated, but it can be reduced. While all this is happening, the small scenes of daily life provide the real education. If a company's CFO is talking too technically during a balance sheet presentation, there is a political warning in the footnotes. If a municipality postpones a tender twice, it means the rhythm of the treasury is disrupted. If a regional leader is traveling more frequently to Ankara, Beijing, or Dubai compared to before, it is not just about tourism, it is about seeking new bridges. If a television debate suddenly shifts to discussing quality and process, it means the rhetoric is giving way to practice. If a social media account doesn't say "we'll return to normal," it first says "let's return to procedure." This is a statement of intent. Micro-signals are more reliable than big words. Big words shed light on performance, small signals on mindset. Now let's go back to the first scene. Private jets, moving safes, school lists, second passport files. It is possible to be angry at this picture, or to romanticize it. But what is important for the analyst is to understand. Each one is a small insurance policy, a small bridge, a small escape. Together, they form a big sentence. Horizontal trust within the country is declining. When horizontal trust declines, leadership wants more control, sometimes giving more, sometimes taking more. In this ebb and flow, the skill lies in increasing the margin of flexibility. Rigidity is not always strength. Sometimes strength is flexibility. Those who understand this remain at the table. Those who don't become files on the table. What we call post-Russia. is actually the way Russia is rewriting itself. Some see it as minor adjustments, others as major revisions, and still others as mere extensions. The truth is often a middle ground where these three intertwine. One day a decree is issued, the next day a promotion comes, the third day a tender is cancelled, the fourth day a letter leaks. Arn Rustran Satters, the sum of these points to a direction. To see where the sign is pointing, one must remain calm, filter out the daily noise, and collect the micro signs. So, will these developments bring disaster and a second Soviet collapse for Russia? 1. Budgetary drag becomes entrenched. The defense share sticks around 8%, and a recession, like cooling, extends into 2026. 2. The regional unequal prosperity boom begins to fade. Consumption islands dry up, unemployment returns. 3. The elites impose either a hard minimum or a soft transition. Internal bargaining comes to the fore. 4. The external wing deepens financial filtration. Shadow channels narrow. Cash becomes king in the new still life. 5. A discipline crisis, reflected in the public sphere, erupts within the military security bloc. It becomes difficult to contain. 6. Not a second Soviet collapse, but a long stagnation new poverty pendulum begins, which puts pressure on the political form. 7. The post-crisis guide could turn into a controlled Boris-style showcase. The showcase softens, but the core remains hard. If the defense-focused budget coma prolongs, the economic consent base of the founding coalition erodes. If elite-level horizontal distrust, region-center tensions, and institutional fatigue converge, transition could be triggered from within. Rather than a Soviet-style sudden collapse, a hybrid transition blending partial outward openness with a Yeltsin-style facade and core security rigidity could unfold over a timeline compressed from years to months. The Russian elite is well aware of this scenario. The public may not be fully conscious of it, but the elite sees it clearly. The only constant parameter in this scenario is the duration of the war. What happens if the duration is shortened? There will be a capacity shock, unemployment may spike, and consumption bubbles will burst. Do the elites know this? Yes, that is why they have two plans. To maintain today, they will use the defense budget, and to save tomorrow, they will use the exit ramp. Let's note this sentence. The war economy burns not only ammunition but also routine. Because as instant decisions accumulate, institutional rules erode. And one day everyone realizes, our constitution has turned into an emergency regulation. On that day, preparations for the aftermath will spread from a few desks to the entire room. Let us accept this text, not as a wish, but as a reading. We have followed the data, analyzed the trends, and discussed the possibilities. So, who is with whom? What is visible today may not be tomorrow, but not writing about tomorrow is the worst preparation. If the defense security share remains high, wage growth slows, and inflation stays stuck in the 6 to 8% range, if the regional central divide widens and cracks appear in the military security sector, if financial channels narrow further, it won't be the 1990s, but a long stagnation will be inevitable. This can be reduced to a one-sentence risk for Putin. As the defense-focused order prolongs, the consent base erodes, and if that base collapses, the aftermath will not be written in a single night, but in the shadows. Elite networks are doing the same. They write, they erase, they rewrite. No one speaks loudly in the dark corridors of the Kremlin, but everyone reads lips. While Russians rehearse for the after, they are also looking for a way out of today. And the leading role on stage is not looking at a single actor, but at a single number, the share of defense spending. As that share falls, there is room to breathe. As it rises, breathing becomes more difficult. So, who stays? Who goes? Who speeds up? Who slows down? It is essential to read the fragility alongside power, the possibility alongside fragility, and the risk alongside possibility. The sum total whispers to us, power and fragility rest in the same hand. This hand is now rehearsing, some are preparing to take the stage, some are waiting in the wings, and some are quietly leaving the hall. Rehearsal does not mean the play will change. But if it does, it teaches us which lines will be spoken on which stage. If read this way, the post-Russia era is not a nightmare but a manageable transition. If not read this way, the simplest mistake in the most unexpected place will result in the heaviest price to pay. And the only true summary of this entire text is this: no one wins alone, no one loses alone. Everyone prepares their own share. The share prepared today will write tomorrow's after. That is why the wisest thing to do today is to read the rehearsal script carefully. That is why we should now return to our first sentence. The streets are silent. The houses are calculating. The elite are busy. And the Kremlin, while managing today, is sitting in the shadow of tomorrow. As the shadow lengthens, the stage's light changes, IAA. And when the light changes, even if the names remain the same, Russia will be completely transformed. Thank you for watching.